Hello, it's Mr. Ippolito, and today we're going to go over the vocabulary, which is at the end of the study guide for our Manifest Destiny unit. So we're going to jump right in and begin with the term Manifest Destiny. So a lot to unpack here in this term, but essentially that term Manifest Destiny it refers to the idea first brought by John L. O'Sullivan in an 1846 editorial where he was defending President Polk's decision to annex Texas, where he says that basically it is the manifest destiny of the United States to overspread the continent, right? From Atlantic Ocean to Pacific Ocean, and then potentially even from Arctic to the tropics. So I think that there is no painting, no image that best encapsulates the idea of manifest destiny rather than this painting right here. This is John Gast's American Progress. And so in it, you have Manhattan over here. So you've got New York City over here, and then you have the flying lady or the angel or this goddess kind of figure. And if you recall, she is bringing this telegraph wire from the East Coast, right? From, this is kind of representing what is already known. That's part of the reason why you have the sunlight right there, because it's the part of the country that has already been developed, has already been sort of civilized, right? And so, and you see all these different modes of transportation, the railroads, the stagecoach, which, by the way, if you look very carefully, says overland mail on it. You have the covered wagon or the prairie schooner that's being pulled by the oxen. And then, so you have all of these different modes of transportation that are supposed to be representing progress, right? Progress going from east to west. And so theoretically, it's that it's improvements that are being brought by the Americans from the United States into the West. In addition, you have farmers here. You have theoretically these are possibly miners that are headed over to California, and then so you have all of these positive things, but then you also have the potentially negatives as well. You have the bison. American bison or buffalo that are running. You've got these deer that are seemingly running away. You have the Native Americans who are running away as well. So on the one hand, it represents progress and bringing, like I said, quote, civilization across the continent. But on the other hand, you have some fear. You have people being driven from their homes. You have animals being driven from their homes as well. So kind of manifest destiny is all of that. All right. As my dog Bella enters the room, we'll go ahead and move on to our next term, which is the word seed. And I will write with a different color ink here. Seed. The word seed means to peacefully hand over. So this is a good example right here in the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819. That is when Spain ceded this territory right here, ceded the land that will become Florida to the United States. And all right, we just had to let the dog out. Back to the word seed. So it means to peacefully hand over a piece of land, right? There may be some money involved in there. In this case, there was some money involved that we paid to Spain. Now, of course, Spain at the time, speaking of the Adams-Onis Treaty, they're thinking, you know what, we have all of this land right here. We have all of New Spain. So, what's this little piece of Florida right here? No worries, we'll just give it up. This, of course, is the year 1819, and perhaps Spain not even thinking or realizing that in the year 1821, that Mexico is going to declare its independence from Spain, and then all of this is going to be gone and no longer under Spanish control. So anyway, just back to the bottom line, the word cede means to peacefully hand over a piece of land from one country to another. All right, the next term is the word siege, and the word siege it's a military tactic. It means basically you're going to surround a castle, or you're going to surround a fort, or you're going to surround some sort of walled or fortified structure or town or a city or whatever the case may be, and you surround them, and then basically you don't allow them to leave, and you don't allow any supplies to get in and out. So essentially what you're doing is you're just playing a waiting game, right? Siege is simply a waiting game, and the army that is on the outside that is waiting to get in just essentially waits you out until such time, they have a military advantage because usually they have bigger numbers over here on the outside than the army or whoever is protecting the inside. So you just wait This tactic was used at the Battle of Yorktown. It was the Siege of Yorktown because Yorktown had the British troops. This is the battle that ends the Revolutionary War. The British troops inside of the town of Yorktown, and then the Americans, and then the French coming in, Americans by land and the French by sea. And it was a siege tactic there. If you'll recall, most recently we studied that Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, the Mexican general and president, used this tactic to surround the Alamo and to force they didn't surrender. Eventually they would fight and lose, and everybody at the Alamo would be massacred or executed. And then we're going to see this again, and this is a little spoiler alert right here. We're going to see it again at the Battle of Vicksburg, and this is during the Civil War, where Ulysses S. Grant, the general for the Union forces, is going to use the siege technique against the Confederates in the city of Vicksburg in Mississippi. Okay, so that is the term siege. We're going to move on next to the term 49th parallel, and that is a line of latitude. Now, we talked about, and I used the globe to kind of demonstrate lines of latitude, right? Lines of latitude are lines that run east-west, right? So this particular line of, and before we get into the correct answer here, the 49th parallel, since we're already talking about lines of latitude, here's another important line of latitude. For example, the Missouri Compromise said that this the southern border of Missouri right here, this is 3630. This was going to be the line in the Missouri Compromise. Here's Missouri right here. In the Missouri Compromise of 1820, it said that Missouri can be a slave-holding state, but any future land, any territory that is gained afterward by the United States going forward north of the 3630 line, this territory is going to be free. In other words, slavery will not be allowed in this territory. And then any land that is south of the 3630 line is open to slavery. So that's just some examples of one line of latitude, one significant line of latitude. We'll go ahead and erase all of that there. And now we're into the 49th parallel. So let's talk about the 49th parallel, because this is actually your vocab term. This is the line of latitude that was agreed upon between the United States and Great Britain. Eventually, this is going to become Canada. At the time, it's still British North America. But the 49th parallel is going to be the line of latitude where we peacefully settle our boundary between the United States and British North America. It will eventually become Canada. So that's the 49th parallel, and that is your next vocab term. Let's move on to mandate now. This comes straight out of our Manifest Destiny Primary Sources activity, and you see the word mandate right here. So this term, this term Manifest Destiny, it essentially means that the United States had a mandate, right? An irresistible moral, economic, or geographic mandate to extend our borders all the way across the North American continent. So a mandate is like, we gotta do it. We have to do it. It's the same root word as the word mandatory, right? Mandatory means you have to do it. And if you've heard of, recently we have like mask mandates in school where you're required to wear a mask when you're in the classroom. So a mandate is you got to do it. And so in this case, it was the belief that Americans, we got to do it. We have to spread across the continent. That's the word mandate. Speaking of that same piece in the primary sources, the next term in there is nationality, right? So nationality simply means it is you're identifying with a particular country. In this case, it is in the 1830s and 1840s when the nationality of the United States is becoming more and more prominent, and Americans are becoming prouder and prouder of their nationality, right? That nationality of being Americans. And I think that's part of what fuels this desire for more land, right? Because they're very proud of their country, and we want to. This is the quote right here from John L. O'Sullivan. Texas is ours. Her star and her stripe may already be said to have taken their place in the glorious blazon of our common nationality. So it's this intense pride in your country. That is intense pride in your country is nationalism, but it's rooted in this identity, this national identity, and that is nationality. Okay, moving on to our next term, which is insatiable. Now, we went over the two Manifest Destiny Wars bubble map, and so one of the reasons that we identified one of the causes of the Mexican-American War is this this idea of an insatiable desire for land. This is that next word, insatiable. It comes from the Latin satis, which means enough, right? Enough. So if something is insatiable, you are incapable of ever having enough. It is not enough. I can never get enough. So this term insatiable means it refers to the fact that the Americans during this time, the 1830s, 1840s, could never get enough land. They had an insatiable desire to keep expanding and growing and getting more and more territory. That's the word insatiable. Okay. And then finally, our last term is push-pull factors. We've talked about this a lot, right? So push factors are those factors, those negative factors, right? The negative factors, let me go ahead and say these are the negative factors that cause you to leave your old home, right? So it might be things like poverty, fear, disasters, unemployment. I would also add things like religious persecution, because in this particular unit, we see that the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for example, they leave New York and they leave Illinois because of religious persecution. So that might be a reason to leave a negative. That is going to be your push factor. Any reason why you leave your old home to go out for a new home, that's a push factor. And then finally, your pull factors, those are the things that pull you toward a new land, right? So safety, opportunity, stability, freedom, good farmland might be a pull factor. That certainly was farmland. Put an R in there. That certainly was a pull factor for the families along the Oregon Trail. I would also add something like seclusion, right? Again, going back to the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, part of the reason why they left to go out to the valley of the Great Salt Lake was just because they wouldn't have any neighbors to bother them, right? So that they could just kind of live off on their own by themselves, which we talked about in class is a similar reason why someone might want to move out to East Palmdale. My cousins who moved out to 135th East and, in East Palmdale, it's because they just kind of wanted to not have many neighbors, right? They kind of wanted to live out on their own. So seclusion, wide open spaces might be a reason to move, especially out to the west, or more land, right? More land or cheap land, or in some cases, that land, if you remember the scene from the movie The Alamo where Sam Houston is trying to make his sales pitch to Davy Crockett, and he says, you will have 600, if you sign up for militia service, you will have 640 acres of your own choosing. So it might just be more land, it might be cheap land, or in this case, it might even be free land, which for some people might be the best kind of land of all. All you need to do is just offer military service and serve at the Alamo, and well, you saw how that went for those Texans. But anyway, so these are examples of push factors and pull factors. It is the factors that cause you to leave your old home, push factors, and the causes that pull you to your new home. Those are pull factors. All right. Well, that's all the vocabulary I have for you. So good luck with your exam, and thanks so much for your time. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.